one of the girls who was volunteering for me, come here, you need to see this. I was like, hold on, I'm busy. Like, no. Come here, because you're going to want to see this. Mm-hmm. She walks me outside. I was like, what happened? What now? And I see a line.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's people here? She's like, follow me. We walked to the end of the block, all the way down the street for blocks. It was a line of people, hundreds and hundreds of people.
Wow.
And I was just like, she's like, it's going to be a good night. Take a deep breath. And I walk inside and I was like, the second dream is about to come true.
Wow.
I was like, it's about to come true. It was deja vu all night. Jason, thank you so much. It's the best night of my life. I envisioned that.
Welcome back to the Nichols and Dimes show. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. Today, our guest is Jason Stewart. Jason is founder of Epic Fighting, a Southern California-based MMA promotion, Stewart Estates, his real estate business and portfolio, and then an exotic car rental business called Epic Exoctics. Jason was really fun to talk to. He's a great storyteller. He's got so many stories to share from his unique experience in life, from his early upbringing and family experiences and buying his first house at age 21. I wanted to understand how he was able to do that, what fuels his entrepreneurial spirit, what he does to manage stress. This is a big topic that I personally struggle with, and I wanted to learn from him about. We talk about the fascinating story of how he founded Epic Fighting and how a reoccurring dream that he had came true in the first epic fight event ever. And naturally, with my background, I'm interested in learning about his marketing approach. He shares a cool story about how he would post flyers up in an area where he wasn't supposed to, but argued that the fines were worth the marketing reach. Kind of like how some athletes have done this with their brands, like Michael Jordan with Air Jordan, he would get fined by the NBA. So a lot of great business insight here. We also talk about his perspective on managing multiple businesses versus focusing on just one. You'll hear his opinion on that. And then a reoccurring theme that I've talked about with my guests around authenticity in entrepreneurship, having good mentors, and other general lessons learned. Jason lives a life that's entertaining, that's inspiring. I'm stoked to have connected with him, and I hope you guys enjoy this podcast and the stories he has to share. Please follow the Nichols and Dimes Show on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe on YouTube, and leave comments with your feedback on any of those platforms. Follow the Instagram pages at Nichols and Dimes and at Nichols and Dimes Show for clips and updates about the pod. This podcast is brought to you by Jungle Athletic Co. and Hostage Tape. You can find the links to check out those products in the description. Now, please enjoy my conversation with Jason Stewart.
Jason Stewart.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man.
Thanks for having me over, man. What a cool spot in Coronado.
You caught me on my home turf, man. Coronado Island. Been here 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah. Maybe 8 now. I don't know.
How you liking it?
Cool. It's like a fairy tale land. It's like not real. You know what I mean? I saw a homeless guy once over by the ferry landing.
Yeah.
And this was a few years ago. So like the ferry was $5 at the time. Now I think it's like 7 or 8. And I was like, is that a homeless? He was just taking a nap. So you couldn't really tell, but he looked kind of homeless. And, obviously someone called the cops on. They were there like in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And the cops were like, hey, bud, here's $5. We'll walk you over to the ferry. Like, you got to be on the other side of the bay.
Yeah.
And I was just like, damn, they don't play over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's safe. It's cool. It's it's a fun chapter of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's always nice coming back. My family's from here. I was born here.
You were telling me you were born here.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I've
been looking at real estate and houses like to rent or to buy, and it's just like, you're not winning either way.
Right.
Especially here. It's like, well, you can rent it for 15 grand or you can buy it and your payment will be 25, 30 grand. But you got to come up with 600,000-700,000 down.
Yeah.
And the rent's going to go up the maximum every year that
Yeah.
they're allowed to raise it. It's like 10% almost. And it's like, whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just gotten crazy.
This might not be the spot but people find deals, people find loopholes. And, I guess if you're sitting on a ton of cash, if you're sitting on a few million, it's a good place to park it.
Yeah.
It's not the worst place.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you've got a big real estate background. So I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about some of your
Whatever
knowledge.
You want to
there.
know. But yeah, I've been in real estate. I bought my first property at 21, second property at 24, and invested in several properties since, buy and hold, buy and flip, San Diego, all the way to Arizona. I own 4 in Detroit right now. I'm trying to sell. Actually, one is, I think, in escrow. I think they already put their deposit. I did a bunch of repairs on it today. I had to put a new furnace, a new water heater, because all that got stolen because it's Detroit. But the golden rule in real estate is to try to make 1%. And it's a very broad rule because different places have different taxes. And when you get the lower price point, the 1% is actually not enough. But a golden, and I'm saying lower price point, I'm talking about like 15,000, 50,000.
Yeah.
But, typically anything over 80,000 all the way up to the millions. If you can make 1% of the purchase price per month, you're doing well. Meaning if you buy it for 100,000, you can rent it for 1,000 a month. That's 1%. If you can buy something for 200,000 and you can rent it for 2,000, that works. San Diego, that's hard to do with single family houses, but I got a couple friends that are crushing it and they rent it out the gate and they're making that 1%. They'll buy something for, 1.2, 1.3 million, a fourplex, and they will be making 12, 13, 14,000 out the gate. Now, they gotta make things work. They gotta be creative. They may turn an area into a studio and a basement into a 1-bedroom or whatever.
Yeah.
But they make it work. In Detroit, though, you can get 1.5, sometimes 2%. I got a property over there that I bought for 60 grand. I probably maybe put 20,000 into it since. And you could rent that thing for 1,600. So you're literally talking 2%, which, that's rare to find in America or anywhere. But, it's they're out there.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah. I mean, you've probably got a ton of knowledge to share in this area, and I'm definitely interested in learning more about your portfolio of real estate investing and Stewart Estates and what you've built out of that. But I just want to start with something that I've heard you say on a few different podcasts, and you've brought this up. You've said that you have this tendency to get real calm when you're about to enter an intense situation, whether it's a fight, whether it's something really intense. And I have a feeling this goes back to how you were raised, how you grew up, experiences you had when you were young with your mom. And I'm just trying to get a better understanding of how do you summarize who you are in that way? How do you have the ability to calm down when things become very intense? What do you draw back on from your life?
Yeah. I don't know, like if it's a genetic thing or it's definitely been conditioned to a large extent. I don't think I was born much differently than other people in that regard. I think I've just seen and been through stuff that may be to the average person considered more intense and more crazy or whatever. And I think I've just been through so much stress that what might be really stressful to the average person, if you've been under that much stress and you've faced it and you've handled it, it's like a wave. If you see a wave coming and you panic and you kind of try to turn around and get away, and then the wave, and then you almost drown and you come up, you're going to be 10 times more scared of that wave next time. But when you face it and you duck dive the wave and you come out the other side, you're like, oh God, that was scary, but that wasn't so bad. And then the next, and you keep getting more and more comfortable with it. The fear never goes completely away, but you get way more comfortable with that fear. And I think it's the same thing with stress. I think that the average person's stressful situation is like my average Tuesday. And so, I'll tell people sometimes, like, they'll be like, what are you going through right now? What's happening? And I'll start explaining, like, I had a situation a few years ago where I had a wolf. I had a pet wolf for 10 years and she got stolen on the day before 4th of July. And then I had a Lamborghini that got totaled and they were trying not to pay me. And so it was a $250,000 settlement. And they were like, no, we don't want to pay you. We think that this, and this happened. And then I had a Ferrari get stolen in that same point. And they're like, well, we don't want to pay you either. We want to make sure there was no, you don't know the person that stole it or this or that or whatever. And they were just trying to come up with different reasons. They were really going left field. Like, did you let any friends borrow this car? Did you ever rent it? And all this crazy stuff. And then I had a deal go south. I let someone borrow 50 grand and he was supposed to pay me back 10% in 3 months. And he just didn't pay me back anything. That same person sold me a car, a Bentley. And turns out that he never paid off the previous loan. from when he had my money. And he says it wasn't his fault, whatever it was. The car got repoed, but I'm up to date on my payments. I made like a, $1,500 payments plus my 40,000 that I put down or whatever it was. And I made that payment for like 8 or 9 months. And so then the car's gone, payments are gone that went towards equity and all that payment that I made, and the down payment's gone. And it's like, whoa. So now this guy owes me $100,000. Of course, every excuse in the book to never pay. It's been years. And then I had a property that I didn't know I'd bought it. I didn't know it was under foreclosure. And they, I guess, had already been towards the end of the foreclosure. The wholesalers didn't tell me any of that. And I was just like, why are they still in the house? Get them out of the house. I'll start the repairs. I'll sell it. And I'll start, next thing you know, it foreclosed. So I lost like 30 grand. So it was just like all this stressful stuff happening at once, plus personal stuff. And like to the average person, it would just like break them. And I could give you different times in my life where I can pack on 10 or 15 things that are all happening at the same time. Right now is one of them. I'm going through all kinds of stuff at the same time right now. And it's just like, man, it's intense. I think you've probably, you're probably referring to some podcasts where I talked about where maybe I get in the cage to fight someone, or maybe someone pulls a gun to my head.
Right.
And all of a sudden, everything slows down and it's just this tranquility and it's a certain sense of like alertness. And instead of like, if I have any type of fight coming up, whether it's a wrestling match or jiu-jitsu or MMA or a pancration or boxing, whatever it is, if I know it's coming up, I have this underlying sense of like almost a tad of stress, irritability. Because I keep thinking, like, what is the other guy doing right now that I'm not, to where they could beat me up? You know what I mean? And so that's why a lot of times with tournaments and stuff, I would just show up and then I would just sign up on the spot. And that way I bypassed being stressed out because like, I'm not going to compete. And then I show up and I'm like, who's in my division? Let me compete, Yeah. And then, but whenever I would get on the mat or in the cage or in the ring or whatever it was, tranquility. So it goes from stress to tranquility. And that's always been, something that I've known. If I'm out, I love body surfing. And every now and then it's like, there's been 5-foot waves. These are pretty good sized waves. And out of nowhere, there's a 12-footer. Where the hell did that thing come from? El Nino swell or something crazy. And it's just like, all right, relax, and my body gets really calm. Start oxygenating because you're probably going to have to hold your breath for a while on this one.
Yeah.
And that's just something that's always happened. I remember a loan officer that I worked with, he brought me in and like some of our deals were falling out of escrow and he was stressed out. And he was like, after that happened a few times over like a year, he's like, there's something about you and the way you handle stress. And I want to learn about it. He's like, cause I'm stressed out. These deals are falling out. Somebody bought a car in the middle of escrow. All these things are happening and you never stress out too much. And I was just like, well, you either can do something about it. So instead of stressing, do everything you can do. You can't do anything about it. So instead of stressing, focus on something else that you can do because there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that the tolerance, putting together an MMA show where you're going to have over 1,000 people show up and fighters are backing out and, sponsors are behind on payments and you have to come up with, right now I have to come up with $30,000 in 8 days or the show can't happen.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, I've been in these situations so many times where it's like, okay, panicking isn't going to help. Let's think back to the drawing board. What can we do to pull that money? And that's just how it's always been. It's do or die, and I'd rather do.
Yeah, it's such a valuable skill, and even for me personally, this is something I'm so interested in how you are able to put into effect because I have a problem with stress. And, I know many others who do too, but I care a lot. I want to perform very well at whatever it is I'm doing. And if, one little thing goes wrong, I have a tendency to let that really knock me over sometimes. And I mean, it just sounds like is it fair to say that you've had a lot of these intense experiences when you're younger and they just became kind of second nature to you of how you kind of have to handle them?
Yeah. I mean, now that you talk about intense experiences when I was younger, I saw my mom get mugged when she was 5 years old. My whole body went calm. I was relaxed. I was alert. I was worried.
And you were 5.
And I was 5 and I'm seeing her with a knife to her throat and they're like taking her money and they're roughing her up in an abandoned apartment. And then I remember her fighting her boy. I remember her fighting a few different boyfriends, but it was getting really physical. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like absorbing what's happening. And then as I got a little older, I didn't see my mom for 3 years from 5 to 8. But when she came back to get me, we were in a really rough neighborhood. Couple incidents happened where she was like, okay, I need to get this kid into some martial arts, got me in Taekwondo. I remember I got really good at the flying sidekick where you run, you fly in the air and you kick the bag. And it's like, man, you can kick a bag so hard. You can break 2-3 boards. And I remember one time my mom's like getting in a fight with one of her boyfriends. And I'm like, I think I can take this guy out. And I'm like measuring the room. And I'm like, if I run from here to here and sprint my fastest, then bam, I think I can break this dude's back. You know what I mean? And so we transferred schools a bunch of times. So I went to one school, kindergarten to second grade, and then I switched schools in third, and then I switched schools in third again, and then I switched schools in fourth, and then I was at that school till sixth, and then I went to a junior high, which was seventh, eighth, and ninth, and I went there seventh and eighth, and then I moved to San Diego in ninth grade. Only went there in ninth grade, and then I went to a new school for 10th. And so it was like every time you transfer school, it's really stressful for a kid. You don't know anyone. You're starting from scratch. These people all have friends that they grew up with since they were, like my kids, they went to the same school from their whole elementary school. And then, the ones that came here to Coronado, they graduated out. Mm-hmm. And so that, teaches you to deal with stress a little bit differently. And then, I bought my first house at 21, and it's just like, man, this isn't like I got to talk to the landlords if I miss a payment. This is like, they could take my house. You know what I mean? So it's just like a little bit different. And then my mom was always sick and going through stuff. And, so I've been told my mom was going to die, and she had 6 months to live since I was, like 10 years old or whatever. Wow. And so they were just like, she'll have 10 months. She has 6 months to live. And it was just like that stress of like, what am I going to do without a mom? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm only living with my mom. I can't think of who else could take care of me. And it's just like, you start preparing yourself to take care of yourself at a very early age, Mm-hmm. And so, Epic Fighting, we were doing a show every 6 weeks. Now we do one every 3 months. Every one is stressful, man. Like, I've never had one that was easy. Now, granted, 80% of stress comes from money. So when the bank accounts are healthy and everything, there's a ton of money in the bank account, way less stress. With that said, all types of shit is still going wrong. So even that 20% of stress that's left, most people wouldn't be able to handle it. I remember I hired a few event planners. I hired this one girl who was a Jehovah's Witness. I never heard her say a cuss word in her life. She was dropping F-bombs. She broke down crying. She was screaming. And like, she couldn't handle the stress of like, where are the trophies at? Where are the plaques? Why are these people not in their seat? These people moved their seat to over there without asking. It's like, why would you do that? Like all this crazy stuff happening. There's a line out the door, but we can't open the door yet because this isn't ready. And she had a nervous breakdown. And then she's like, I've done Bridezillas. I've done everything. And, almost everyone we've had who kind of like was in the trenches and really knew what they needed to do, really stressed out. And then a lot of the other ones were just so in la-la land that they just didn't even know that they weren't getting stuff done, that they weren't stressed out when they should have been. Mm-hmm. So, so it's like anything, it's a muscle. Yeah. The more you use it. It's like if I went for a run right now, it's going to hurt because I haven't been running. And it doesn't matter how much you run in the past. If you haven't ran in 6 months, you go run a mile, you're going to be hurting. But you run a mile every day, and then the next day you go to do 2, you're not feeling too bad. Is there a way to train that muscle without just having to unexpectedly run into shitty situations? Yeah, I think the best way to train it is to think of everything that can go wrong and then get ahead of it. Okay. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you're still in a stressful situation. There's still stuff that you're going to miss that's going to be last minute, but it's nothing is worse than knowing that like all of this could have been prevented. Yeah. You know what I mean? And now it's like, I could have done this a month ago. I could have done this a week ago. So the best way to do it is to stay ahead of it. This reminds me of the fear setting exercise by Tim Ferriss. Yeah. I love that. You think of the worst possible case scenario that it could be. You lose all your money. You're homeless. You're living under a bridge. A dog bites you. All this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then you kind of put yourself in that situation of like, hey, this is the worst. I'm bumming money on the streets to buy a can of beans and tortillas, and that's my dinner. That's not the worst. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you look at the likelihood of that actually happening, it's less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, what's a more realistic bad case scenario, but not worse? And so when you start to do that, you start to realize like, you know what? I should take that risk. Mm-hmm. Most people don't take risk. Like they got a job and it's like the riskiest thing they could do is quit that job and try to get a better job or try to start their own business.
Right.
But then when you reverse engineer it and think of the worst possible case scenario, sometimes you're living it. Like I'm still in this job for 20 years. I know that I'm pretty much at the ceiling. They're not going to give me any raise more than inflation. And it's like, You know, Jim Carrey has this great story about his dad, to where his dad played it safe, and his dad, I forgot if his dad was a mailman, but he worked a job that he didn't enjoy. But he did it for safety and security to have like protection for his family. He's like, I'm not going to take any risk because my family, so I'm going to take the safe route, even though I don't love it, even though I'm passing up on my dreams and all this stuff. And then he got laid off. And then he's like, if I could lose doing something I hate, why not take a risk doing something I love? You still have a chance of losing. You know, you can still get fired and laid off from your job after 20 years of loyalty. So I think that's a great quote. Like, do something you love, especially in this day and age where you can make 6 figures or multiple 6 figures a year, literally with anything.
Yeah.
Literally with anything. You can start a Power Ranger business. You know what I mean? Like you love plants. Cool. You can make $200,000 a year off of plants. Like there's nothing in the world that you can't start a subscription, a membership base, a YouTube channel, a product, a service, information that you could sell all across the world that people will buy your course for.
Right.
There's nothing that doesn't have a market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, such a great mindset. And all the different entrepreneurs I've had on the show, that is a common theme, is that they just approach how they think, how they view the world differently. They see more opportunities than the average person. They look at things from, kind of against the mainstream in a lot of ways. And I'm just curious, was there a time in your life, maybe it was when you were a kid or as you grew older, where you realized you were different from most of your peers in that way?
Oh man. It's funny. I have a friend, Sarah, that I haven't seen her in a long time, but we would work out sometimes or skate sometimes and hang out. And she went to my high school and she was telling, she's told like a couple of my girlfriends that we've hung out with, like, Jason was always different. And I don't remember being that different or trying to be different, but she was like, yeah, Jason in high school, there was something about him. It wasn't normal. He was kind of weird, but it was cool. You know what I mean? And I think there was always something different. I mean, maybe it was just like being raised different, like, didn't see my mom or dad for 3 years and being put in situations. You talk about stress. I remember getting dropped off at my aunt's house because my other aunt and uncle, I'd been living with them for 2 weeks. I was supposed to be living with them till my mom came and got me, which was supposed to be 2 weeks. Ended up being 3 years. But then I get dropped off in their house. And because they were like, this guy has too much energy. They have 3 kids. That aunt was way more energetic. And I just look around and I was just uncomfortable and the kids are playing and I don't know anyone. And like, I was just like, I'm tough. And that's all I could think to say. Like, I'm tough. And it was just like, I'm not weak, It's like, and then my aunt picked me up by my feet, like, show me how tough you are. Show me how tough you are. And I start giggling and it kind of broke the ice. But, being in those situations repeatedly, even when I was living with my mom, like we were moving, we moved to San Diego at 3 months and then South Bronx. And, that's where she ended up eventually getting shot. And then that's why she never came to get me for 3 years. But, it was always something different. And I remember when I was a kid, I was maybe 10 years old. I was like designing my life. I remember I was in the shower and it was steamy. And I was like, okay, kids, and how am I going to raise my kids? And then it was like fitness. And like I had this goal since I was a kid because it was on a cereal commercial of this guy who was 75 years old and he was barefoot water skiing. And I was like, check that. I will be 75 years old, barefoot water skiing, 100%. And then I'd met a few people. My mom took care of this woman, Miss Keller, who lived to be over 100. And so that was like instantly like, I'm gonna take care of my body and I'm gonna live over 100. And anything that's gonna take years off of my life, I'm not gonna do that. And that's why I went like my whole, I don't know all the reasons. I have like these 5 theories of why. My brain wants to be different. So if everyone's doing this, I want to do something different for whatever reason. It's like, I've been vegan for 14 years and it's become so popular that I don't even want to be vegan anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, everyone at the party was drinking. Yeah. And the peer pressure is insane for the average person. But because I had this shift in my brain to where it was just like, oh, everyone's doing it? Oh my God, I'm the only one not doing it? Okay, cool. Yeah. That's where I want to be. Like the more you say that, the more I don't want to. Where most people are like, fuck yeah, I am sticking out like a sore thumb. Like this does feel awkward. This is a lot of pressure. Everyone's looking at me. I'm the only one without a drink in my hand. Yeah, fuck y'all. Like, and then I'm not drinking. And maybe it's a superiority complex or something, or maybe I want to be better than other. I don't know what it is, but
I want to stand out one way or the other.
Yeah. So there was always a lot of things that were different. There's a lot of things that I revolutionized with just the MMA promotion that I have, Epic Fighting, that no one else has ever done. Like right now we're doing TV commercials, and I talked to my friend. I was telling him earlier in the year, I was like, yeah, I'm going to create $30,000 a month income off of these TV commercials. And I'm going to do it like selling, the commercials for really cheap and buying the airtime. And he was like, I don't even understand what you're saying. What does buying airtime mean? And all of the entrepreneur friends were just like, what is he talking about? Like, how is that going to work? And, and here we are. And I've already created, we're over 30,000 total between sponsorships, VIP tables, and commercials.
Wow.
But yeah, so I've still got a lot more to go because my goal is to get to 60 grand. Mm-hmm. The goal was by end of June. We were getting close tracking, but now I'm focused on putting the show together. So I kind of stopped selling and I was the guy selling everything. But anyway, I created up out of thin air. So he called me back. He was like, man, the fact that you thought of that, no one else had ever done that. And now you just created $15,000 a month reoccurring income out of thin air is insane, And so he's like, you're the type of guy that'll just think of something and do it. Like Epic Fighting. I just, got the idea in my head, and next thing you know, we're all in.
Yeah.
It's an extremist mindset, and the extremist mindset is the most powerful. The extremist mindset is the most powerful when it's focused. And the problem with brains like mine is, I'm an extremist. I can go 14 years without eating meat, and I can wake up every day, or I could complete a 75 hard challenge and do that, every single day for 75 days. All that type of stuff is cool to have that extremist mindset and that discipline, where it's met with the challenge of most people with those types of brains also have, they want to do everything. And, when I started Epic Fighting, I started a model staffing agency, and I bragged about how it was the number 2 model staffing agency in San Diego within 6 months. But the reality is, if I would have just stuck with Epic Fighting and made it, but Epic Fighting wasn't profitable, mind you. It was 7 years before it was profitable, but I had the number 2 model staffing agency in San Diego. Why don't you make this business profitable before you go starting another one, right? And then I had Epic Detailing, and now I have Epic Exotics, where I'm renting out these exotic cars, and now I'm trying to sell a bunch of the exotic cars, or I would sell the whole business because I just want to work on getting the Epic Fighting reoccurring revenue up to 60 grand a month. Then I could get all my A players in place and boom, boom, and run that. And, maybe I could step off the gas a little bit. And then maybe I'll have another goal where I want to invest in X amount of properties or whatever. But it's doing the one thing at a time until you get it to where you want it to be, that is so hard for people like us to do. But anyone can make $1 million business. Anyone. Like I said, you could literally, you pick it, trash hauling, landscaping, electrician, whatever you want. You could turn that into $1 million business relatively quickly if all your energy and focus goes there. And I'm talking just, 3-5 years. However, you can't do $5 million businesses at once. And that's what so many people try to do. Think of it as a ladder. So you have a ladder and you got the 2 poles of the ladder up this wall, 2 poles here, 2 poles here, 2 poles here. And then you put 1 step on this ladder, 1 step on this ladder, 1 step on this ladder, 1 step on this ladder. You made the same amount of progress if you would have put all those steps on 1 ladder. But if you would have put all those steps on 1 ladder, you would have gotten over the wall. And that wall is profitability.
Yeah.
So now you got 5 businesses that aren't profitable instead of 1 that is. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with this. And it's a topic that I actually was really interested in talking with you about. So I'm glad you're bringing it up because I struggle with spreading my eggs in a bunch of different baskets to the point where I'm overwhelmed. I don't do any one thing as well as I'd like to. Right. And it takes away focus from that one thing. So I love how you're going for this. You're trying to simplify. You're trying to simplify and focus on Epic Fighting to take that to the next level. And that means maybe offloading some of these other businesses or liquidating them, right? But do you think, is there ever an argument where you can look at it like diversifying your portfolio? For example, when you bring up the Epic, what was the name of the model agency?
Epic Promo Girls.
Epic Promo Girls. That was going really well at the time, right? While you were doing Epic Fighting, it was kind of linked. It was like almost vertical integration in a way, right? And I'm just curious, do you think that was appropriate to have that at the same time because that was doing well and Epic Fighting was still on its way up? Or do you say, no, let me just outsource the modeling so that I can focus more on Epic Fighting? What do you think is a better route?
Yeah, so I'm not against vertical integration, but for the most part, we were the number 2 model staffing agency. But when you look at the total income that would have been generated, it would have been much more if it was just focusing on one business. There's just no way around it. But both of them can be very profitable business. You just have to pick which one you want to make really profitable. Because I could have went from number 2 to number 1 in San Diego to number 1 in Southern California to number 1 in all of California. Like, it wouldn't be hard to do. When you look at the competition of most businesses, like if you really wanted to be head and shoulders above them, it's not that hard. Most people aren't doing that much. Like I look at these businesses that are making $50,000 a month and, they have no social media presence, or they're not doing any Google ads, or they're not doing any meta ads. And it's just like crazy, or they don't have a referral program, or they have, 10,000 or 100,000 emails, but they never send out an email blast, or they never send out a text to like all these numbers that they have. I remember we had a get together, like a mastermind, and this couple, the wife had this sexy clothing and she would sell it on eBay. And I was just like, I got some ideas for you. And I met and I sat down, and my friend had even better advice than me. And he said, every time someone buys on eBay, they have to provide an email. How many do you got? They're like, I don't know. And they're like, are you not emailing these people? And they said, no. Okay. And how much are you making a month? And they were like 14,000. He said, okay, I'll have that doubled within 6 months at the very most. They doubled their income in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Because they had like 20,000 emails or 10,000, I forgot how many it was. And they said, here's a email blast campaign and a website of a company that has nothing to do with you. It was like outdoor gear, but they're the best at it. So look at what they're doing good, apply it to your sexy clothing or whatever. And the next thing you know, and there's like, okay, so we're going to do an email once a month. He's like, no, you're going to do email every day, every other day. And they started doing it. And next meeting we had was like a month later, and they were like already doubled their income. And within 6 weeks, it was like more than double. And so there's so many people that are just sitting there, us too, Epic Fighting too, 100%. There's so much that we're not doing. Like we didn't even have a Google listing until a couple of weeks ago. Like if you Googled us or had a Google location, or like, how do I get to Epic Fighting? Because it's at a resort, so it's not our location. So it was a little more complicated to do. But I just hired a guy, and he's like, yeah, he did that and Tumblr and Pinterest and yellowpages.com and like 20 other things, $1,000. Plus he's posting on 3 times a week on all these platforms, and he's like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, but yeah. So as far as vertical integration goes, though, yeah. So if I was to do it again, I would take Epic Promo Girls, and I would put together the systems. I would be double worked, so I would have twice the load for a few months as I'm figuring that out. I take what I learned from Epic, apply it to Epic Promo Girls. Cross-reference. Obviously the Epic fighting people are going to get email blasts about Epic Promo Girls. Hire a girl for your next event. Grand opening, poker party, whatever. And then I would get the most talented person I could find, because I've had the mistake of hiring B players to try to save money when an A player costs 50% more, but is 4 times as effective, right? Mm-hmm. So I would get the A player, figure out what I could do to get them and give them ownership of the company or give them a percentage. And that's what I was doing originally. I had a girl who was the general manager, and she would take 50% of the profits. The only thing was she wasn't generating any new income. Mm. So I need the general manager to either be the one or create a team to where they're bringing in new leads, because all the leads were coming in through people texting me directly.
Got it.
And my network. But with that said, she was still managing it, and it's a lot to manage. Like models are a lot to. I mean, I still have to manage them because we have the models and the go-go dancers and stuff, and it's a hard thing to delegate. Not anyone can communicate with models because they can be divas and they can be emotional, and there's different personality types that clash. And this person doesn't want to work with this person. Why is this person acting like my boss? And so, like, up until recently. Actually, up until the last show, I finally hired a manager, but she's someone that I've known for a lot of years. She knows all the models. She works with them. She's a model herself. Yep. And so that's the person that I would probably have do the Epic Promo Girls and say, you keep half the profit, but you're also going to book the gig. Now you're going to make me start. Yeah. I mean, the business is still there. We still got all the stuff going on. I just haven't put any energy into it. But yeah, you're going to have me start a whole new model staffing thing. But I guess the point I'm getting at is I would work at it hard for a few months, and then I would have someone else to where they run the whole thing. And then I fully remove myself from it. And then I stick on the one thing that I want to do, that I need to do. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to go back a little bit just so I can get the storyline in order here. So you were in before 21. 21 is when you bought your first house, right?
I tried to buy a house at 18, but my mom put the water bill in my name when I was 8 years old, and I guess later on it went delinquent and
mess up your credit.
Mess up my credit. So I was 18 years old. I think my girlfriend might have been pregnant already because, she was in labor on her 19th birthday. So her birthday is June 3rd. And as she's turning 19, she's pushing a baby out. And then our oldest was born on the 4th of July. But we're 18 years old. She might have been pregnant. My brain was always different. Not many 18-year-olds are thinking like that. So I walked into it might have been a Century 21. And I was just like, 18-year-old walking in, acne on my face, skinny little kid. And I was just like, and everyone's looking at me like, they're looking around like, you looking for your dad? Like, what are you doing here? And I was just like, I wanted some information on how to buy a house. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, you know what I mean? And I was just like, well, can I buy a house? And no one wanted to talk to me. And I remember this one guy, he was pretty young. He was probably in his 20s, had glasses, and he's like, screw it, come with me. Yeah. And he said, can I run your credit? And I was like, sure. And he ran my credit. He was like, do you have any cash? And I was like, I've saved up $16,000 from bussing tables and, I was really good at saving money since I was young. And that was actually 20% of a $80,000 condo, which they had back then. And he was like, if you had no credit, like zero credit, I could still qualify you for, with 20% down. The problem is you have something negative on your credit. I'm like, I don't even have credit. What are you talking about? He told me about that. I went home. I yelled at my mom. I'm cussing at my mom. Like, what the hell were you thinking? Yeah. She's like, you weren't complaining when you was taking them warm baths. You wasn't complaining when you was brushing your teeth with that running water. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh man.
And so I ended up waiting till I was 21. It fell off my credit, and I bought the property then I think I bought it about $126,000. Right. But you think about it, that same condo was would have been 75, about 75, 80 grand
Yeah.
if I would have just bought it when I was 18. It's the power of real estate. You know,
yeah.
time is on your side.
Oh yeah. So you got that, you got an early start obviously. But to get that money, weren't you doing some sort of fitness training? That's how you saved up that initial chunk of money. Is that true?
So when I was 18 years old, all the money I had saved up was from like bussing tables. I worked at Pier Cafe when I was 16, and then Spaghetti Factory, I believe I was working when I was 18. I know I started at 18, so I probably had already been working there. By the time I was 21 and I went to buy, I was a new fitness trainer because I started training at 21. And so a lot of because when I first started training, I was a delivery driver for KFC, delivering chicken around Chula Vista. And I was a bus boy at Spaghetti Factory still. I think I was still working at Spaghetti Factory at 21, yep. And then I was selling supplements out of the trunk of my car. So I would try to find it wholesale or cheap or clearance. And then I'd go to the college and I'd sell out of the trunk of my car. I was in school full time. And,
Wow.
and I was a fitness trainer. Yeah.
So so just to lay this out, you had your first kid, you were about 18?
Yeah. So when I had my first child, I found out when I was 18 and I had her when I was 19.
Okay. Yeah. So you're 19 years old when you had your first kid.
And today is my daughter's birthday.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. Yeah. So you're grandpa too.
So I worked out today in the gym and I would do shoulder raise, baby in this arm, shoulder raise, baby in this arm, one arm upright rows. Yeah. And then I would do back. And then usually I'll do like walking lunges and I'm holding her and I just do walking lunges all the way across. And so yeah, they're little Minky with the Binky workouts now.
Yeah. That's funny, man. But it's just wild to put that together, how you had all this going on when you were young.
And that's probably why I handle stress more than other people. Because when people are like, oh, I'm so stressed out, like I have too much on my plate. And I was like, show me your plate. And I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
Girl. But you know, the best analogy for that is if you get on the freeway and you speed up to 60 miles an hour, it feels like you're going really fast.
Yeah.
But if you're going 120 miles an hour and you slow down to 60, it feels like you're not going nearly fast enough. Most people have never felt 120. So if they ever hit 60, they're going super, super fast. But if they ever felt 120, they would have a new marker, and that 60 mile an hour pace that they're used to going to, because people will be like, well, you're so busy, so I don't want to bother you. Or, I know how busy you are. And I'm like, no, it's hard to be busier than when you have a baby in school full time, 3 jobs, and selling supplements out of the trunk of your car. It was my business. I had flyers and all these little booklets made. My business was called Jason's Supplement Slinging Network. The internet was new. I was in there making like my logo, changing the font, putting photos on there.
So yeah, I mean, that was the connection I was looking for. It was all the stuff you went through when you were younger, how you're able to handle stress, and just the digging we did into that topic. And then you getting started with becoming a father, buying a house when you were basically around 20 years old, which is wild. And then, investing in real estate, starting more businesses. So from, I guess, throughout your 20s, because you started Epic Fighting 2010, you were probably around 30?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was going on in your 20s then? Was that completely real estate focused?
So I bought my first house when I was 21, but I was a fitness trainer all the way up till 2004. And then maybe all the way into 2005. So when I first got into real estate, I kept training my clients. Matter of fact, a lot of my first real estate clients were my fitness training clients. And I had a really great experience because everyone told me I would be good at real estate. I was like, why do you say that? They're like, you have dying skills. You think they were dying. You think they're dying back then, imagine now. But the dying skills that like all these older people would tell me, they're like, not a lot of people your age have communication skills, customer service skills. And they're like, you have that. And that's a dying skill. I was like, really? And they're like, and that we'll help you do well in real estate. You're also competitive. If there's ever a contest you want to win, there was always these training contests, and I pretty much won all of them, right? I still have the record for the most training sold in a month. Until Bally's shut down and then turned into LA Fitness bottom out. And so it was kind of like the things that make you good as a fitness trainer. Because when I think, to be good at a fitness trainer, you have to know everything about the body and workouts and diet. And they're like, no. They're like, no, that's not why we all train with you. We love it that you're knowledgeable, but we train with you because of who you are. We enjoy spending this hour with you. And people are going to enjoy having you as their realtor when they go to buy a house, and you teaching them how to invest and all that stuff. And I was just like, I just don't know if it's going to be fulfilling. Fitness training was so fulfilling to me, even though there's a lot of people that never follow their diet and they never would lose weight. But it would still be like, yeah, but you used to only be able to do this, and now you're going to do this. And I could tell that you're not that motivated to lose weight, but you're still healthier. You know what I mean? You're still stronger. You're still faster. But a lot of people would. It's like, yeah, you remember your doctor said you were pre-diabetic? You're not anymore. Hey, remember when you had heart disease? You don't anymore. And so, having the guy, I have a friend, he's still my friend to this day. He repairs windshields and stuff. And he was a chubby kid his whole life. And we went to Mexico together one time. We became friends. And one of those holidays, we're in Rosarito, and he's dancing in the club, and these girls start dancing with us, and they grab his arms, and they were like, levanta el peso. Like, you lift weights, huh? They told him in Spanish. And he was like, yeah, I lift weight. No one's ever been able to tell. He's been doing it for a couple of years, but he's finally got his body fat down to the point where they could tell. And these girls were in shape. You could tell. And he got so excited. A drink later, he's on the table with his shirt off and he's spinning it around. And then later on, when he sobered up, like the next day, he's like, Jason, that's the first time I've taken my shirt off outside of my bedroom my whole life.
Wow.
Since I was a child.
Yeah.
And so my biggest worry going into real estate is like, money is cool, but fulfillment is really my thing.
I want to really touch on the story of starting Epic Fighting, though. So going through your 20s when you founded Epic Fighting, it wasn't planned out really, right? You had somebody else from Albuquerque who you were connected with?
Yeah, so I had a friend of mine who, so my give back was these free workouts that I would do. I had a friend that say, always give back. And it's cool if you could give back something that's not money. That way, if you're ever in a situation where you're starting a new business or one business dries up and you're low on cash, all these people who were counting on you for that money, they're hurting. But if they were counting on you for some type of knowledge or you were volunteering or something, you could always do that. And so I was like, I'm going to do a free workout at my house Monday through Thursday. And actually, the big motivation to start it was because the mother of my children, we were together at that time, she thought that the accountability of having everyone at our house every day at 6:00 was going to make her work out. But then she fell off like a couple months in and she was missing some of the workouts, but no one else wanted to. So they were showing up, every day, 6:00, Monday through Thursday. And it also created accountability to me. For one, I had to leave the office at a certain time. There's a rule that a law that I love called Parkinson's Law. It says your task will swell to the amount of time you give to them. So 8 hours, you get this much done. But if you have to leave early to go on vacation and you got to leave by lunch, you only worked half a day, the same amount gets done. The only difference is you didn't chat by the coffee shop, you didn't take too many bathroom breaks, and you didn't shoot the shit with the homies. You stayed off of Facebook that day because you had to get it done. Well, that was me in the office. I was working till 10:00 at night because the work never ended, right? Oh, not anymore. I got to leave by 5:30 to be home by 6 because I got 10 people waiting for me to train them. Well, one of the neighbors got invited. He asked to bring this guy who he was in the Navy. He wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I wish I think his name was Edgar. I wish I could find him because like he created this life. He's responsible for this life that got created through Epic Fighting. He came over to work out with us a few times. And I had mats, I had all kinds of punching bags and mats, and I had a cool house with a bunch of little areas, And they're like, yeah, maybe afterwards we could roll. So we did our workout. Afterwards we rolled. He's like, oh, you really know your stuff with jiu-jitsu and this and that. My daughter was a little MMA prodigy at the time. he was like, I hear you have all these connections with the gyms and you know a lot of fighters because you take your daughter to all the gyms and she could train everywhere for free because she was a little, MMA, pretty young girl who's like beating the boys, you know how they do, like at 10 years old. Like there's not a big strength difference yet. So the girls can still whoop the boys. Comes down to technique. And so he asked me to do a fight. I was reading Tim Ferriss and he was saying, most people don't know what their passion is, so follow your free time. So I'd already tracked my free time and I was either training my kids in martial arts, training myself in martial arts, and the only sport I ever wanted to watch was martial arts. I don't know who's in the Super Bowl, the playoffs, the whatever. And so I was like, okay, maybe something around MMA, mixed martial arts. And I kept leaning towards clothing or gear or stuff like that. It's funny, I was about to start a kids MMA gear. I was going to manufacture overseas kids MMA gloves and shorts. And this kid, the only person in the world who had kids MMA gear was a guy who his kid trained with my kid at Alliance MMA. And then afterwards we would go to my house and get more rounds in. And we were like really training these kids. There was about 3 kids that would go and they would all like fight each other for like an hour after their 2 hours of practice. Yeah. But you kind of want to get as ready as possible because when they compete, this other person could potentially hurt them. So the more ready they are, the safer they are. So it seems intense for kids to be training 3 hours a day. Yeah. But anyway, he had a kids MMA company, the only person in the world. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to start it. He already has it. I want to do my own thing. And this guy came over and asked a few times, let's do an MMA fight promotion. You have the real estate skills to negotiate contracts with the venues, negotiate with insurance. You're a great negotiator. One of my skills I was always known for is negotiating because I didn't look at it as a us versus them. I looked at it as like, let's make a win-win, a synergistic approach. I don't want you to lose. You know what I mean? And that created a whole different energy to where we always got what we want, or close to it. So I was like, okay, I do have those skills and you have all the connections, everyone in the gyms, the coaches and the owners. Okay, yeah, I do know those people. After I do my show in Albuquerque, we can do one together here. So my wheels start turning. Next thing you know, websites going up, social media is going up, YouTube, Facebook. I'm inviting people. I'm calling up girlfriends of mine to be ring girls. I'm hitting up all these fighters and stuff like that. And next thing you know, we got all these graphics up and our website looks like really nice. Like the original guy, Emmanuel, the guy who made our logo, props out to Emmanuel Lay. He made this logo that 10 people get tattooed on their body at every Epic fighting event. And he created the website and he created our graphics and he made it look like he's really good. He's really talented. And then after that, Echo. So I don't know if you watched the Jocko podcast, So Echo was doing our website after that, and he's like, Echo makes a web like it looked like $100,000 website, And he was obviously not charging me that, and he was making these dope videos, and so we looked like a big deal, like from the beginning. But by the time he had his event, he looked at everything I had built, and he was like, "Bro, I can't think of any value I could add. You've done everything. You got your promoter's license. You got your insurance handled. You got all that." Good luck. Yeah. And then we did our first event.
When the moment when you said your wheels started spinning to come up with it in San Diego, was that, did you come up with the name Epic Fighting then? Or did that come later?
Oh gosh. So it was funny. So I'm sitting there brainstorming the names. Guru Fighter, Warriors League. I bought 50, give or take, domain names.
50, wow.
Like in a week. Every time I get it, I'm like, get the domain name, get the domain name. And
so you had an idea that you wanted to make it a thing instead of just bringing one event to San Diego.
Yeah. So what's funny, this is how cocky I was. The first poster, it's a beautiful poster, by the way, Emmanuel made it. Epic Fighting 1, all digital, all crazy. And it was just like, yeah, this is the first of many. A lot of people don't do that because they're just like, I don't have any investors. There's no guarantee that I'm not going to lose my ass. Right. You know what's funny? I got this call from my buddy Sean, and Sean meant the best. And Sean was like a lot more experienced than me in this type of stuff. He owned Grappling X and some other ones, some big grappling tournaments. He'd been doing it for years. And he called me up and he was just like, hey, I just, how's it coming with, and he had already, he got his promoter's license, I believe, before me. So I was like the 18th in the whole state and half of those never did a show. So I think my promoter's license number is like 18. I think his is probably lower than mine if he still has it.
Wow.
But he said, we start talking and he just casually mentions, he's like, assumed I had a lot of money because I was in real estate. I didn't have any money in the bank. I think I had less than $5,000 sitting in the bank at the time. Real estate is feast or famine. And so he was like, yeah, so, it's fun and it's cool. And, obviously don't quit your day job, but you're going to lose 30,000, 50,000 at least per event for the first several events, maybe 10. And then you might start breaking even. And then it's like a lot less stressful. And I was just like, what did this dude just say?
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I got that call. If I would have got that call a week earlier,
you wouldn't have done it.
I'm out. Because he's not wrong. He wasn't wrong. Everyone who's come to try to do the show hasn't been back. Like very few people have done multiple shows. San Diego's also like a really tough market, And so I had just paid for the website and I had just paid for just enough stuff to where I couldn't let it go. It was not refundable. And so I was just like, this $3,500 that I've dropped, I've got to make it work. And I don't have the option to lose money because I don't have any more money to lose. So I remember I went to a bunch of people I knew. I went to Cole Casey. He gave me a few $1,000s for a sponsorship. And then I went to another sponsor, and they were throwing me a little bit here. And then I was going out and I was saying, hey, general admission tickets at the time were $30. I was like, hey, come buy them as many as you want for 15. And it's your job to sell them for $30. Anything you don't sell, you're not getting your money back. And people come and they would buy a whole bunch of tickets for $15. And we had a huge, here's a cool story. I had 2 reoccurring dreams. One, the place is empty and I'm stressed out and I'm scared and they want to start the fights. And I'm like, wait, no, people are going to be coming. They have to come. And the other dream I kept having was the place was packed and everyone was like, thank you so much. This was the best night of my life.
One or the other.
Thank you for the opportunity. And it was just like so many people there, so many coaches thanking me, fighters thanking me, fans thanking. And I was just like, both were motivating. One was motivating out of excitement. One was motivating out of fear. When we're getting ready, first one was at the 4th and B, it's dark. There's no windows. You can't see what's going on outside. I'm stressed out. Come on, we were supposed to open doors already. Like, let's hurry up. What's wrong with this? What's wrong with that? One of the girls who was volunteering for me, come here, you need to see this. I was like, hold on, I'm busy. Like, no. Come here because you're going to want to see this. Mm-hmm. She walks me outside. I was like, what happened? What now? And I see a line.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's people here? She's like, follow me. We walked to the end of the block. All the way down the street for blocks. It was a line of people, hundreds and hundreds of people.
Wow.
And I was just like, she's like, it's going to be a good night. Take a deep breath. And I walk inside and I was like, the second dream is about to come true.
Wow.
I was like, it's about to come true. It was deja vu all night. Jason, thank you so much. It's the best night of my life. I envisioned that. I saw that happening. I actually saw this coach from this gym telling me that in my head for the past 2 months, over and over and over, and it's happening. And then someone came up to me and said, can you believe that? Like, what's going on in your brain right now? Like, can you believe that happened? And I was like, yeah, it was deja vu.
The first fight.
That's happened in my head over and over and over for the last 2 months. And then I had this vision that there were so many people trying to get into Epic that we couldn't even let them all in. Epic 4. And we're doing a show every 6 weeks, so it wasn't that long later,
right?
A few months later. Epic 4. We were refunding tickets. People were like, no, don't refund my ticket. I'll stand outside and look through the window because they couldn't fit inside. And we were turning away hundreds and hundreds, maybe close to 1,000 people. Wow. We turned away at Epic 4. People came up to me, can you believe that? It was a problem, but it was the most quality problem you could have. We made a ton of profit where the previous shows were like, give or take a couple thousand, a loss or gain. Can you believe that happened? I was like, bro, I know this sounds crazy, but this has happened in my head repeatedly for the last couple months. Like, this is deja vu to me. And then the next event, a bunch of people showed up and they had Epic tattoos, big old red outlined tattoos. did you ever think that people would be getting Epic Fighting tattoos, like your logo tattooed on their body? I'm like, no, man, this is outrageous, because I never had that thought, you know?
What do you attribute to it blowing up like that so early? I mean, clearly, you know, another big thing I want to talk to you about next, just to kind of sum up everything you've done, is your marketing genius. I think you've got an amazing, unique approach to marketing from your social media stuff, and what just the concepts you've applied to each of your businesses. And I think that will probably just answer a lot of the biggest questions I have with how you've been able to grow these different brands you've built. But I feel like it probably comes back to this, with how you were able to get Epic Fighting off the ground that effectively, that early on. Mm-hmm. How do you describe what your strategy was to have all those people show up that early on? Especially, by the way, this is like the 2010, 2015
2010,
era.
Yeah.
Fighting was still early on, right?
Yeah.
UFC is
people weren't
huge.
even calling it MMA yet.
Right.
They were still calling it cage fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So two things: branding and culture. Culture, you can call it culture, vision, whatever. So branding, believe it or not, it's weird how, that's why I tell people, do as much as you can, learn as much as you can, because you don't know where it will apply. I'm getting certified for a 24-hour fitness certification. It's a week long. The 24-hour fitness certification was better than most. I got certified with National Academy of Sports Medicine. That was pretty intense. But the 24-hour fitness one was pretty good, you know? And it was a week. And so they went over a bunch of how to train people, how to work out, practicing, get with a partner, put each other through workout. They went through a bunch of that. But they went through other stuff because they're promoting their company. They're hoping you stay with their company. And plus, 24-hour certification is only good there, right? But they had a day where they talked about branding for an hour. And they said, our goal is to brand an experience with 24-hour fitness to where you'll pass a couple LA Fitnesses and a couple Bally's Total Fitnesses to get to a 24-hour fitness, because we've branded an experience and you know what to expect and you like it. How many people here go to Starbucks? And they're like, you know, you can get the same quality coffee as Starbucks at almost anywhere else. Hell, 7-Eleven has decent coffee. They're like, why do you go past 5 7-Elevens and 2 other coffee shops to get to a Starbucks? Oh, it's better coffee. It's like, no, it's not. He's like, the reason you do it is because they've branded an experience. You know what you're going to get. They're going to make you feel a special way when they remember your name, when they write your name on the cup. You know what to expect with the certain type of lighting, the ambiance, the music in the background, the where to look for your scones and your pops and maybe a little snack. You think it's cool to say vente instead of large. You know what I mean? Like, they do all this stuff to make you feel like you're someone, you're special, and they've branded that experience. That stuck with me. So when I started Epic Fighting, I was like, people don't know about martial arts. Mm-hmm. Martial artists are the most disciplined, kindest, like hardworking humans in the world, because most of these people grew up as children or as teenagers or as young adults doing a martial art, which typically equals discipline. Like, you don't just go to practice every day without getting discipline. You know, my martial arts instructor would just repeatedly discipline, right? And so, but people have this image of boom, beer can smashed on the head, or fights in the crowd. That's not the real MMA culture. That's not the real martial artist culture.
Right.
I'm going to create an event that is classy, that is sexy, where there's exotic cars out there, where there's pretty people, where a 55-year-old couple could get dressed up and go out for a night out. And it's as entertaining as any concert or any club or anywhere else they could go to, but with just way more energy and way more excitement. Mm-hmm. And so I had this image of creating it. The other thing I had was this big vision. And so I remember I was at a gym one time and we were doing like a photo shoot or something. And I just pulled out a board because someone asked me a question. I pulled out a one of those giant pads and I had a marker. And I said, this is the vision I have for the company. There's going to be Epic Apparel, and that's going to be its own division. And we're going to have Epic Art. And I know some artists that work for Epic that are very talented, and they're going to have our little E logos in there. And I have a couple in my house right now of like the gas lamp It's a painting of the gas lamp, but there's E's everywhere. I had this vision of like, downtown, but there's E's on the cars and there's E's on this and there's E's on that. And then there's a building with Epic Fighting on it. And I just had this big vision. So everyone just crowded around and was just like, I'm going to be a part of that. And people want to be a part of something bigger than them. So like so many people would volunteer their time. We had a girl who eventually became our matchmaker. She was a model at an event for one of the sponsors. And when she saw what it was, she was like, the energy here is different. I want to be a part of this. And I was like, oh, I don't really know how you could help, but but she was persistent. I was like, you want to be a ring girl? She's like, I'm trying to phase out of that. I really want to be part of this company. And we had meetings every Wednesday. And she just started showing up. We had open meetings once a month. So she would come to the open meetings where it's like anyone can join, bring a guest. And then I said, you know what? You're kind of part of the Epic family now. Come every Wednesday. I found out many months or even a year later, she lived in Rancho Cucamonga. And she was driving to San Diego every week just to come to these meetings, still not knowing how she could help. It was like, she was just kind of a volunteer at that point.
Yeah.
And then we had an opening for the matchmaker position. No one wanted to step up to the plate. No one wanted that job. And she stepped up to the plate and she became the first female matchmaker in the United States. And she's still doing it. So not for us, but for some other companies. Sure. And so, life-changing for her, right? Yeah. And so that was the two things. It was branding, knowing where you want to go, your branding, and then the vision. So your people's leadership can never surpass yours. Mm-hmm. So if your leadership is a 9, they can only get to an 8. So your goal is to get as close to a 10 as you can. So everyone can be 9s. The problem is a lot of times the leader of the company is performing at a 5. So no one else can really do anything above a 4 because you're the leader, you're the cap. Yeah. It's the law of the lid is what they call it, I believe, in the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. And so, my vision for the company was always to make it a $25 million company. I don't know if I want to sell it at that point. Same thing as I wanted to make it franchisable, even if I never franchise it, because 9 out of 10 businesses fail, but 9 out of 10 franchises succeed. And the only difference is how they document their systems and procedures. So I was like, we're going to pretend this is a franchise, document everything so we have systems and procedures so we're not reinventing the wheel every time. And those are my tips. Get a clear vision and get an idea for how you want to brand your experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyone can come up with a really cool vision at the beginning. How did you make it so popular that early though? Like in the first couple events you had so many people show up.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with, the marketing and branding. I mean, we had some really cool graphics. And then I noticed that so many fighters were horrible at promoting themselves. Uh-huh. And so, in the early days, I don't even think Instagram was a thing yet. Mm-hmm. On Facebook, you could see who their friends and family were. So if I posted a fighter, even if it was just a photo of them or whatever, and say they were fighting and this and that, I would tag everyone in their family.
Oh, okay.
And so I was hyping them up for them. Oh, They work where? Let me find out who else works there and tag all of them. Now they got their whole coworker. A lot of fighters are like secret fighters. They're just like, I don't really want people to know I'm a fighter. Or, some do it because people know me as a tech nerd. Mm-hmm. It's cool when they find out I'm a fighter and I don't advertise it. Some of them have that kind of stigma. Some of them are just like, oh, it would be really embarrassing if I lost in front of all my coworkers and friends and family. So I would rather them just not know. And then if I win, I'll be like, hey, everybody watch my video, For me, I was like, screw that. Like, it doesn't help you, me, or anyone if, your people aren't seeing you fight. It's going to create more opportunities for everyone. And so I would do a lot of the marketing for them. I would just pretend like they're not going to do any marketing, and I would market each fighter to their fan base. So that helped a lot. And you're making it be as cool as possible. At the time we had everyone, we printed up these decals and we would get them for free in exchange for tickets, right? And then everybody had this E on their car. And some of them would say epicfighting.com on the bottom. So we had 2 options, and some of them would just be the E. When it was just the E, it'd be like, I see that everywhere. What the hell is that? Then I would go around putting posters everywhere, just old school guerrilla marketing. posters everywhere, like mini billboards. And I found out spots to where if you ever have to make a left turn, this spot, it's the back of a sign. So you're not covering up. We never want to do like vandalism type stuff.
Yeah.
But it's always, there's never a green light for a left turn. You always have to stop. So you're stopped, the person behind you stop. They can all see that poster and they just have to sit there and stare at it until the light changes. And then I remember Chula Vista had an ordinance. Hey, where I started getting calls, we're going to fine you. I just ignored them, kept putting posters up everywhere, Chula Vista and all over San Diego. But Chula Vista was the one that was strict about it. So they kept calling. We had posters from Oceanside to Imperial Beach. And they said, so finally they got me on the phone. Like they went like a different route because they were still calling the company line. We weren't answering. So they got my personal cell phone. Hey, I just want to let you know that like you've been warned several times. We're gonna fine you. I was like, how much is the fine? Well, the first fine could be, $300. And then after that, it could be $500. And I'm like, so I'm getting prime real estate, prime advertising, billboards all over Chula Vista. And I might only have to pay a few $100s in fines. I was like, oh, okay. All right. That's good to know. Thanks for letting me know. Like, yeah, we'll fix that. Shh. Go put posters up. I'll pay $500 all day. Like, are you kidding me? It reminds me of and I learned a similar lesson from Michael Jordan. He would get fined every day for wearing his Air Jordans because I believe it was Reebok, that had a contract with NBA. So all the players wore those shoes. And he would get fined $10,000 a game. And he would be in every single newspaper, every single headline was a close-up of his shoes. Like, look at Jordan. He broke the rules again. He got another $10,000 fine. Yeah. And everyone's like, man, these fines are adding up. He's playing a game every day. He's already passed $100,000 in fines. Yeah. He said, I couldn't have paid for better marketing than those $10,000 fines. It was like every $10,000 was like $150,000 worth of marketing that he got because it was in every newspaper. Yeah.
There's been a few athletes I've seen who've taken on that strategy, even recently, where they go out, maybe they wear some hat that gets a lot of attention, they get fined for it, and then their jersey sales go way up. Things like that I've seen. It is
genius.
Yeah, it is. Man, we really could talk for 3 hours. I got so much I wanted to talk about, but just to try to zone in on, the most important pieces, what I'm most interested in. So one thing that I wanted to ask is actually, so I had Sean Merriman on the show recently who runs Lights Out. And I'm curious, is there anyone else out there who runs a fight promotion or even just somebody who you look at and you could learn from afar, like maybe Dana White, for example? Is there anyone that stands out or certain things that you've taken away from certain people?
It's funny because I'm a big believer in mentors, and then there's so much stuff that I did without a mentor. And I have a lot, I do have a lot of mentors, but a lot of them I've done a lot of the stuff without. I don't know how that worked out. And then I remember I would always, everyone needs to get a mentor, this and that. And like, who was your mentor growing up? And I was like, I had a mentor growing up. Yeah. And so a lot of it was kind of self-motivated. And then watch a lot of books, read it. Like, you could say Tony Robbins was my mentor because I like watched every video. I remember I went to my first Tony Robbins conference and I was literally like lip syncing more than half of his stories. I knew everyone by heart. And then like, Tim Ferriss. And then I listened to a lot of his guests and I would listen to a lot what he did. And so that was kind of where it was. But, I've kind of, when it comes to promoting, I pay very little attention to what any other promotions do. I have kind of had my head down. There was one promotion, and I wish I could remember which one it was the first to do it, but they had the body cams on the ref. And so I did do that. Yeah, I got the GoPro camera on the ref. So if there was something I saw that stood out, then imitation is the greatest source of flattery. And a lot of promotions have imitated us. Unfortunately, most of them haven't lasted. Most promotions go out of business, but a lot of them are working. So when it comes to MMA promotion, obviously Dana White's the GOAT, 100%. Give him his credit where it's due. Give him his flowers. And he was in the trenches when there was no money, and then but he also had investors. It's something I've never had. And so the way I run Epic is a lot different than how most companies have been run because I can't think of another bootstrapped, non-investor infused money company promotion that has lasted. And, you know, I was doing Chat GPT and like, are any of these other companies profitable? And it was basically like, not really, UFC only, you know? And most of them aren't profitable. So even though sometimes we still every now and then we'll have a show where we might lose some money, you know, year after year, there's a profit, even though sometimes the profit's greater than others. But like, we're profitable. Bellator is, you know, famously, notoriously never made a profit.
Wow.
And they've been around forever. UFC took a long time to make a profit. And all the other promotions they're fun, they're good. I hope that there's something else that like, you know, side sister business, whatever they are making profit from, but they're not making profit, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to kind of model that. And so I wish I had a mentor, someone in this industry who had done what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And it's not to say I won't ever take on investors or anything, but the way I look at it with investors' money, and maybe I'm too soft when it comes to this, but it's like, I need to prove that I could succeed without the investors before I go taking on investor money, because I don't have the option to lose. You know, I've gotten everything from buses wrapped with my logo to billboards all over San Diego for free, because I had to do whatever it took to get butts in those seats to where we didn't lose money, because I don't have it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, if I tell people like, you know, like I got to come up with 30,000 in the next 8 days or whatever. If I don't do it, the company's bankrupt. Because what happens if you can't pay the expenses to make the show happen, which you have to pay before the show can happen, then the show doesn't happen. And if the show doesn't happen, all the other expenses, you lose that money. Mm-hmm. And here's the worst part. Say you sold $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 worth of tickets already, but it wasn't enough to cover your $60,000 expenses, and you just can't make those ends meet. Well, you have to refund everybody's tickets. Yeah. So now you didn't just lose the 20 grand that didn't make the show happen. Now you have to refund the 30 grand or whatever that you have to give back to them. Yeah. So it's hard to come back from that. Yeah. Hard to come back from that. But I've had investors that were throwing in a few millions and be like, all right, you know, we lost 50,000 on this show. Let's try to make it up on the next one. When you don't have that option, I'm going to come up with 30,000 in the next days because I don't have another option. Right. But if it was investors' money, it's like, there's a lot of stress, man. It's my daughter's birthday and my granddaughter's birthday today, and I got this coming up. Like, I'm not going to kill myself over this. Yeah. The investors can take an L this time, you know? And so my mindset is be in that do or die situation. Yeah. Get used to that. Then if you take on investors, they know, like, you know, you're going to treat their money like your money.
Yeah. Wow, man. I mean, I think that kind of sums up a lot of how you've been able to accomplish things. It goes back to the Parkinson's law in a way, mm-hmm. right? Where you're forced in a position to make something happen in a certain amount of time, and you just operate at a different level.
Yep.
That's
cool,
and
man. The inversion of Parkinson's law is Pareto's law, which is the 80-20 rule, right? Which mm-hmm. is where 20% of your actions are creating 80% of the results. Yep. And so if you can get rid of that 88% that's not producing the results you want, and just focus on that 20%, if you could somehow make that 20% the 80, or at least the 40-50, right? Then you're going to double, triple your results.
Yep. And this is all in the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, by the way, which
4-Hour Work Week, yeah.
Recently did a podcast episode review on.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, just a few weeks ago.
It was probably the most life-changing book of my life.
Really?
This 4-Hour Work Week, yeah. And then Power versus Force is another really good one.
Okay.
If I'm doing book recos. And then 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is a great one. John Maxwell, I think he lives here in San Diego. And then it's another really powerful book. What are some books that have been life-changing for you?
I mean, I'll have to dig up. I really, there's this
7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, honestly, the Tim Ferriss books have been huge. Ed Mylett has a really great one. The Power of One More. Really enjoyed that one. Yeah. But this might be actually related. This is like a common question I ask everyone towards the end. And it's, if you have an entrepreneurial life hack, that you could share with the audience that goes against the mainstream belief, do you have something in mind that you could share?
Don't diversify. Go all in on the one thing that's going to produce all of your results. And when I say all in, it's like, instead of trying to do 5 businesses, do one. And then, once you've have a base understanding of every part of that business, like when I started Epic Fighting, I basically did everything except build the website. I was the matchmaker. I was the model recruiter. I was, everything. I did everything. Then you go, all right, so my skills are maybe in sales and marketing. And so, okay, you handle this, you handle the finances, you handle that. I go all in sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, I can delegate the marketing. I'm just going to go in on sales. And then maybe at some point you even delegate the sales and you figure out like even more like laser focused thing you can do, like company growth or just playing the whole game and putting all the people on the bus and being the leader. You look at some of these most successful people and what they do now after they've achieved all this success and they've been in the trenches for a really long time and they figured out what works, but now they got really good at delegating and all their businesses are so profitable that they don't have to work in them. They spend all their time here where we are. Yeah. They spend, the Alex Hormozis, the Tim Ferrisses, the Andrew Tates. All they do is sit in front of the camera now and share all this knowledge. And then they use all of that as leverage to like go buy my course, go, sign up for my thing, join my school, like whatever it is. Yep. And it's the most leverageable thing they could do. And they could just retire. Like if they didn't do any of that, the businesses would still make enough. They're still making millions a month. Why not just go on the beach? But usually, 4-hour work week. They say, if you're the type of person who could actually retire at 65, that means you're so ambitious that sitting on the beach doing nothing will have you sticking bicycle spokes in your eyes out of boredom because you're the type of person that needs to be doing something. Yeah. So it's a catch-22. The people who can actually retire are the people that the last thing they want to do is retire. They always have to be doing something. So when these people get to their most highly leverageable thing that they could possibly do, it's speaking in front of big crowds. Yeah. And it's recorded. So it's evergreen. It's just the same as a podcast. Or it's sitting here one-on-one on other people's podcasts who have a following and a different network and just getting all these nuggets out and clipping all those nuggets. And then all the other stuff that other people do. Like other people clip it. They do the sound stuff. They do that. But they go 100 hours a week of freaking making content because that's who they are. Yeah. That's why they got to where they are, to where they can, delegate all of that. They can't do the 10-hour weeks. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like if you're such a master at delegating, that's like one of the biggest things I've been trying to overcome and figure out and talk to my guests about. But in the meantime, it is best just to zone in on one thing, focus on that and grow that instead of trying to spread yourself too thin. And delegating is like working out. Like you can never get too good at it. Yeah. You're always going to have room to improve and you have to constantly be doing it. You have to constantly check in and performance report. And like, I feel like I've gotten, 100 times better at delegating than I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm not even 20% there. Like I got another 80% to improve to really master it, Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So last couple of questions I have. One is, what is your sleep routine? How are you good at sleeping? I'm pretty good at sleeping. Yeah. I can take a nap here and there. I have a massage chair. Best investment I ever made. 0 down, 0 interest. I negotiated the shit out of that chair. Got a brand new chair that's like a $15,000 chair. I think I got it for less than $6,000. Wow. Shout out to my boy over at Real Deal Sleep and Real Deal Wellness, because he does the same thing. He has all types of massage chairs. And I also bought a bed from him. And the bed has actually improved my sleep because now I can go and I can put it on anti-snore mode. So I usually get 8 hours, but my 8 hours weren't the highest quality because I snored. And now that I have the anti-snore mode, which is props you up a little bit, brings your knees up a little bit, it puts you in a position where you don't snore. Interesting. So my sleep has improved with that. It also has a vibration motion, which will just vibrate you in your lymphatic system, and it helps you it's like a humming, and it like makes you fall asleep, which I think is really cool. But does that affect your breathing at all? Your nasal breathing? Does it promote that? The vibration?
Or no, the
Oh yeah. The angle, yeah.
the anti
Yeah.
snowing mode.
The coolest thing he did to really drive that point home is he put me in a mode where I'm like this. And you comfortable? Yeah. Actually, he had me go flat. He's like, "Are you comfortable?" I was like, "Yeah." And then he had me go here. I was like, "Oh, that feels nice." Then he had me go back to flat. When you go back to flat after being in your body's natural angles, it feels so uncomfortable. But you don't notice it's uncomfortable because that's all you know. Like, I didn't know that driving a W12 Bentley is the smoothest, most beautiful driving experience you could have until I drove it. And before that, I would have told you that this, Nissan Altima is fine.
Yeah.
It's very comfortable. And it is. But you never get that feeling of how the wheel turns and holding the wood grain and the way that engine moves. It's so smooth. And it's just like, wow. When I turn in the Maybach and the seats grab me and the seats are massaging me in my lower back and my upper back, and then I go grab something out the refrigerator because I'm thirsty, and then put the cooler function on it to keep it cold. I didn't know that existed, so I had nothing to compare it to. I would have been fine in my Toyota. Yeah. Now that I know that's out there, it's like, my friend was shopping for a Lambo Urus, and we've bought a couple, and he had to have the massage seats, and everyone's like, "You bougie mofo." Yeah. But it's like, we've bought so many cars with massage seats now, it's kind of hard to live without them.
It's a blessing
what question was I answering?
I think you got into the cars. We were talking about the sleep and breathing through your nose.
Oh yeah. So whenever the flat felt comfortable, he goes here and then he goes back and it feels uncomfortable as well. It's like, I don't ever want to sleep flat again. And same thing with a pillow. Like, I bought a couple pillows from him that are they just feel different. They support your neck differently. Yeah. And so, I get 8 hours of sleep. My 8 hours of sleep has been much better. Sometimes I only get 6. If I get 6, I will try to sneak a nap in. And the reason why I brought up the massage chair is sometimes you don't know you need a nap. Sometimes you got a little less sleep, or maybe you needed a little bit more sleep. And the way you know if you need a nap, you hit that massage chair. If you pass out and you wake up not knowing where the hell you were, you needed a nap.
Yeah.
And so even though sometimes the naps are only like 20 minutes or 30, 40 minutes, it's a game changer. That 20-minute nap. So they actually did study that said I forget if it was a 20 or 30-minute nap, but it was somewhere between 20, 30-minute nap and 6 hours was the equivalent of sleeping 8 hours. Because you go like something about, when you need that nap, it's just a very efficient sleep. That 30-minute nap is so efficient.
Back to Parkinson's law.
Yeah. And that's why my rule with my kids has always been, I'm going to wear them out to the point where it's hard for them to stay awake. And then they don't have sleeping problems. And I think that's most people. Like, don't get me wrong. I've had nights where I couldn't sleep, where I had so much on my mind or whatever, but I work out because it eases the stress. It makes that time where you're working more productive, because when you're so stressed. Yesterday I had a headache. I never get headaches. I was just working all day. And I was like, do I really have a headache? And I had to like stop and breathe. I had to go outside and get some fresh air and everything. But I was just like, man, that's intense. But when you work out, you don't have the headache. You're breathing a little more deep. Your work is way more effective. And so also, if you work out, there's a better chance you're going to fall asleep because your body is dying to get into that repair mode, Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Well, so my show, the Nichols and Dimes show, is like the intersection of sports and entrepreneurship in a way. People who have a background in something intense that they've done, whether they were a pro athlete, a special operator in the military, and then now they're doing something in entrepreneurship that's interesting. Do you have anyone in your network you would recommend I have as a guest?
Anyone in the network that I recommend you have as a guest? Man, I have a lot of cool people, but you're talking about infusing sports. So I got one guy. I don't think he has a business yet. I mean, his business is he's an athlete. That's his full-time business. Mm-hmm. And he's in the Paralympics. And he competed at this last Olympic Games. And so that's Trenton. I think he would be good. I don't know when he's going to be in San Diego again. Andre Reed. Have you got him yet?
I don't think so. No.
Andre Reed is a Hall of Famer. Yeah. Great guy, good friend of mine, amazing wife. She'll be the one I connect you with because she does all of that type of stuff for him. But yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, a football Hall of Famer. Yeah. He's got more yards or whatever than, you know. My friend has passed for more yards than Joe Montana. And he's in the football Hall of Fame as well. And he's here in San Diego. Both of those guys are here in San Diego. And I guess I do now that I jog my memory. Yeah, two Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. That would be really good. Yeah,
those all sound great. Andre Reed, and who's the next one?
Jeff Garcia.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so I got some good guests for you.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. This is fun, man. This
was cool, man. We've been going all day.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of things cooking right now, and I'll be at your next event, and I have full faith you'll pull it together. And
everybody, go get your tables, epicfighting.com.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about business strategy, one of the things I did that was revolutionary is I started monthly payments for the sponsorship. So instead of sponsoring an event, you had to sponsor for at least a year, and you made monthly payments. And so I started doing the shows further out. So every 3 months, so that way these people could get 3 payments in, right? Versus if they're only 6 weeks, they're only going to get 1.5 payments, and they can't really pay twice as much per month per se.
Yeah.
And so this way we had time. The events were always full because we had plenty of time to market them and everything. And they got a really great presence there, really great experience. Then I said, I love reoccurring income, right? So then I was like, what if I took the tables and did just a little, they're not sponsors. They don't got their logo on the fighter shorts and the cage. I was also the first person to have logos on fighter shorts way before UFC. 2010, my first events, I had every sponsor on the fighter shorts, and I had red shorts, blue shorts.
Yeah.
And so, it's about being creative and doing things no one else has ever done, right? I'm all for doing stuff that's working for other people, but sometimes you got to think of some shit that no one's ever done, right? And so then I said, okay, the VIP table will print their logo on the tablecloth. We'll give them a shout out the event. And then whenever we have the yacht parties or mansion parties, they'll be invited too. Mm-hmm. So if you just buy a table, you're not invited. You're not, you know what I mean? Like you bought a table for one show 5 shows ago, but you got a permanent VIP, you're on our list. And so now you get invited to extra stuff. So they pay monthly for the VIP table. And then I started the commercials, and now I've decided I'm going to go through every single one of our people that are doing commercials, and I'm going to give them some tickets to come enjoy the show. Because everyone who comes to the show, a lot of these people didn't know who Epic Fighting was that are doing the TV commercials. They're just like, I just want cheap commercials. So now I'm excited that a lot of these people are going to come and they're going to see. A lot of them have watched it now because they want to see their commercials, so they watch the fights.
Yeah.
So now they're going to come feel the energy of a live event, which that I really pride myself on. I've been to every other fight promotion or lots of them. And it's just a different energy at Epic, which I'll let you experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
And so when they come see that, they're going to be like, all right, maybe I want to get a permanent VIP, or you know what? I got a friend who wants to get involved. And it's just a fun chain reaction that expands the Epic family in perpetuity.
Yeah. I love it, man. Well, I'm excited to experience it, and I appreciate you sharing the story and sharing the lessons along the way. We could talk for another few hours because there's so much.
We could do another one, man. We'll run it back. We'll run it back after the event.
All right. Well, Jason, thanks so much for sharing all this, man, and good luck with everything. I can't wait to go to my first Epic Fighting event, see what it's all about.
See you there, man.
All right. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Nichols and Dimes Show. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and follow my Instagram page at Nichols and Dimes. The podcast Instagram page is at Nichols and Dimes Show. And please like any of the videos you come across on either platform and leave a comment, leave feedback. It helps me to improve and innovate and to continue to scale and bring more interesting guests to the Nichols and Dimes Show. Thank you all for the support, and we'll see you next time.